Hi everybody, Brian Brooks here from the Idaho Wildlife Federation. Welcome back to the weekly legislative recap where we talk about everything that moved through the legislature this past week that has to deal with fish, wildlife, hunting, fishing, public lands, and access, and I try to talk to you about as fast as possible so that you can get to enjoying your weekend. I'm going to dive right into it. It is the Ides of March and we are seeing tons of bills passing through, so let's just dive right in. First up, we have House Bills 143 and 144. These are the bills that would allow a temporary fur purchasing license, which doesn't really have an impact on the sporting nexus. And the other one allows for a lifetime trapper's license. Those are both ones we support. They have passed through the entire legislative process and are on their way to the governor's desk as of this week. Next up, we have Senate Bill 1017. This is a bill that would allow you to buy a 2-year invasive species sticker for your watercraft, and it doesn't have any impact on the invasive species mitigation budget, which is a good bill. That is also done with the legislative process and is heading to the governor's desk as of this week. Next up, Senate Bill 1021. This is the bill that would give the legislature authority to approve or deny any proposed changes to the outflow structure on Priest Lake. We think this is a little bit of a legislative overreach. If there is a consensus-driven process and local stakeholders decide on what to do with any sort of bypass to cool down Priest River, why should they then have to go lobby legislators from other parts of the state? So we think it's these things are best done under local control, and we don't support this bill. However, the bill did pass through its entire legislative process. It is on its way to the governor's desk, unfortunately. Next up, we have Senate Bill 1049. This is the bill that would provide better enforcement on state lands. Right now, we have people getting away with pretty bad behavior, tearing up lands up on UTVs off of roads, stealing timber, making dump sites, starting big fire rings where they're not supposed to. And those things are already illegal. However, the bar is really high for the punishment. So a lot of judges are saying, well, that's, a misdemeanor for going off road is probably too high. So this reduces the penalties, and it starts with a first-time warning. However, there are concerns from law enforcement folks that say that there's lacking some due process for people to contest the warnings. So it may actually result in less ability to enforce this bad behavior despite the intent of the bill. Of course, we support the intent of the bill, but because there are concerns from lawmakers, we're a bit neutral on that bill. It's going to need some more language next session to address those concerns. Despite all that, it is going to the governor's desk as well. Lastly, here we had a bill that was introduced, Senate Bill 1143, and it passed out of committee. This is the bill in reference to shed hunting. Now, I'm sure there is no shortage of opinions on what we should do to mitigate the impacts of shed hunting on our herds, especially during bad winters like this one. We've gotten a lot of input from people that say it should be this way, it should be that way. But the good news is that none of those ideas would be, crossed out or anything like that by this bill. This bill simply gives the authority to move forward on discussing and implementing any of those sort of rules, restrictions, regulations, seasons, whatever they may be. This bill does not make any of that. This just allows the conversation to take place, to allow people to submit their good ideas and to really shape what that could look like in Idaho. Consider that all the neighboring states around Idaho have implemented similar measures. A lot of folks in bad winters are going to be coming from those neighboring states here to find sheds. Now remember, I myself am a shed hunter. I get out there and I look for sheds, but there is a legitimate industry behind shed hunting. It's a $1 billion industry. There are droves of people going into, especially over in eastern Idaho, pushing animals around, causing mortality, pushing animals onto private land, getting into hay. This is causing actual mayhem. And hopefully what we can do, if this bill is passed, is we can set very limited geographically and time frame, and only on years that it's needed, when there's heavy snow, for instance. Hopefully that's what we can get if this bill passes. Now, there is a risk with that. I completely understand that, but we hope that people will pay attention to this process and are engaged if this bill passes. So it did pass through the Senate committee, on its way to the Senate floor, likely next week. We'll see where it goes. We'll keep you informed. Thanks everybody for paying attention. Have a good St. Patrick's Day and weekend. Take care.